Hello. Today I would like to talk about one of the singers that I thought was just great, um, Miss Whitney Houston. She was one of my favorite singers. Whitney Elizabeth Houston was born in 1963, August the 9th, to Cissy Houston and John Houston. She was one of three children born to them. This was a famous family, actually. Her mother was a famous gospel singer, and her cousin, Dionne Warwick, was a famous singer in her own rights back, I think it was around about in the 50s, 60s. Her godmother was Aretha Franklin. So she come from a long line of really great singers. She grew up singing in the church, in the choirs. Most singers usually do, I believe. That's where her roots were. Later on, at the age of 14, she was a backup singer. She was singing backup for the likes of Chaka Khan. She also did modeling. She was one of the first black women to be on the cover of 17 magazine, and I remember that magazine. I remember that magazine very well. And then later on, Clive Davis signed her. He was a music producer for Arista Records, and he signed her and was her mentor for 2 years. I think he signed her in 1983, and then 2 years later, her debut album dropped, and it was self-titled. And out of that one album came three number 1 hits. One was Saving My Love for You, the other one was How Will I Know, and the third was The Greatest Love of All. And after that, she blew up. She 10 years, she album after album and number 1 hits after number 1 hits. In 1992, she did her first movie, which was The Bodyguard with Kevin Costner. It was a movie about a pop diva that was being protected by a bodyguard that really didn't want to be protected by a bodyguard, and this was played by Kevin Costner. Although the movie did very well at the box office, it didn't do very well by the critics. But out of that movie came this great soundtrack that won Album of the Year, and she also received 3 Grammys for that movie. Later on, she married Bobby Brown, and they had a daughter 1 year later, Christina Brown. And still during that time, she made several other movies. She made The Preacher's Wife. This was a remake of a movie that was in 1960. And it's what about this angel that came down, from heaven. And it was really a great movie. And from that movie, there was a soundtrack also. And it was a gospel soundtrack, so she sort of kind of went back to her roots during that time, and she made this great gospel album. After that, she made several other movies also, but it seemed like after she got married, she started this downward spiral. I mean, she just started, really going downhill. There was rumor of drug use. There was rumors of fighting, infidelity. She was busted at the airport for having marijuana. There was so much going on during that period of time for her. She started looking pretty bad, losing weight, and her voice was never the same. She couldn't hit the notes the way she used to. She did an interview with Diane Sawyer that became very famous interview when she talked about that people said that she was on crack, but to her crack was whack. She made far too much money, she said, to even do crack. And she talked about her addiction also, and she said that she believed that she didn't have an addiction. She believed that she just had a habit that she needed to drop. Truly, she was really sort of fooling herself. After that video, so much happened. I mean, you start seeing a lot of tabloids talking about her drug use. She did a lot of stints in rehab. Her marriage to Bobby Brown broke up. She started missing a lot of musical dates, claiming, they said she was ill and she couldn't make performances. It was really bad for her, really, during that period of time. She still was Whitney. I mean, even though she was going through a lot of problems, she still was Whitney Houston. Everybody still wanted to see her. But when she was on the Grammy Awards or she was seen in public, she really looked pretty bad, and everybody knew she was really struggling with the drug use. Whitney Houston passed away in February of 2012. Before then, though, she did make a comeback. I mean, she started looking really good, and she started sounding really good, and she made this really great movie called Sparkle. It was a remake movie of the 70s. It was a movie in the 70s that was entitled the same movie, called Sparkle. And sad to say that after she made the movie, she passed away. So I just want to say that Whitney Houston was the greatest singer that ever lived, and I would like to remember her as being such. She achieved over 415 awards. She's in the Guinness Book of Records for awards. When I think about Whitney, I think about the song that she sings called One Moment in Time. This song talks about achieving this one thing that would define you, in your lifetime. Something that you have always wanted. Sort of like, I want to graduate and get my bachelor's. That would be my moment in time. Whitney had quite a few moments in times. She did. But now that the music has stopped and the voice is at rest, I just want to say good night, Whitney, and thank you so much. Goodbye.